Segal Talks here at the Segal Center in Midtown Manhattan in New York City. The church bells close to me just rang 12 noon, so it is time for the last talk this week. And we have with us two international theater artists, and I look really forward to the conversation. It is Eva Mann from Switzerland and Washington, Obwanda from Nairobi, Kenya, and we will listen to them what they are doing and what they are thinking and what's up in those countries. It's important for us to know, to learn, to listen, and to get an impact. We had Melati yesterday, an artist from Indonesia. I thought it was just an important and great conversation about theater in Asia and her decision to go back from Europe, actually partly also in Germany, to go back to Solo in Indonesia, work with her community, create works there, festivals, and she's shifting her priorities, which she started before Corona, but she feels now it is the right move she did. And on Wednesday, we had Elizabeth Hayes, French American or American-French curator and artistic producer, together with Rachel Cooper from the Asia Society. We're talking about the importance of cultural exchange initiatives and all the complications that we experience now and what we have to worry about. Anne Cattaneo, the great Anne Cattaneo from the Lincoln Center Directors Lab, one of the institutions we really respect also at Lincoln Center, told us about Washington and Eva, their collaboration. Both were part of the Directors Lab, where she for over decades now brings together artists, thousands of them, and has a network that is still going on. And she talked about Washington and how complex and complicated the situation is at the moment in Kenya, in Nairobi, and about the collaboration they are trying to put together with Eva in Switzerland. They met here in New York City, so there's a strong New York connection. Let me tell you both a little bit about the artist Eva Mann from Switzerland. First of all, hi there, Eva, and Washington, thanks for joining. And it's good to have you guys with us. Eva trained in London and Moscow in acting, but she also has an MA in philosophy and German language at the University of Tübingen, a famous university in Germany. And she directed in the UK, Switzerland, Germany, Russia, the US. Amazing what she already did as a translator and writer. Her idea and her aim is to facilitate exchange of texts and also concepts for theater between theater cultures, countries, and continents. She is in Switzerland at the moment, where she has her company PLAYADES, and she is dedicated revisiting images of the female, a representation of the female in history, literary history, and of course on the stage. SinnSpiel, like sense games, if one could say. She created an interactive documentary theater style. And of course, she was at Anne Cattaneo's Lincoln Center Directors Lab. Washington is a Nairobian director of what he says community theater, a little theme we also heard yesterday. He trained at St. John's Community Center and the Godown Art Center Nairobi as a forum theater facilitator, director, actor, but also scriptwriter. His forum theater plays have addressed topics of HIV/AIDS, domestic violence, and harassment of women. He has directed classical plays at the Alliance Francaise Nairobi and written and directed plays commissioned for the High School Student Drama Festival. And his most talked about play, The Blunt, features a transgender protagonist and main actor. And he also did site-specific work on the streets and is inventing cures, at least also on the stage for Corona and for illnesses in society. And of course, he also went to the Directors Lab. So both of you, welcome, welcome. Where are you and what time is it? Washington, let's start with you. Where are you?
I'm in Nairobi right now, Nairobi, Kenya.
Yeah.
And it is 7:05 p.m. Yeah, it's at night now.
It's night.
It's night at 7, yeah. We're at 7:05 p.m.
Wow. And Eva, where are you? In Switzerland, I guess.
No, actually not. I'm near Stuttgart in Germany. Because which is kind of the wrong place to be at the moment as an artist, because it's possible to rehearse in Switzerland at the moment, but it's not really possible to rehearse in Germany. So it's kind of weird that I'm here trying to rehearse. It's 6:05 in the afternoon here, and so we'll still have daylight for a good 2 hours.
For a good 2 hours. So tell us, how did you guys meet?
So how about I start, Washi?
It's okay. It's okay. Yeah, you can go.
Yes. So we both attended the Directors Lab in 2014, correct?
Yeah.
So after the first sort of general introduction, where you sort of like within 2 hours you meet 70 amazing different artists from around the globe, and then all of us decided that we were going to go somewhere to some outdoors place to have a drink, and I found myself standing in front of the traffic light with Washington. So he was the first person I started talking to, and I think 4 hours later we were still talking. So that's how our friendship and collaboration started.
Washington, do you remember it the same way?
Yeah, I do. And what I found amazing about Eva, when she was actually interested on the kind of the work that I am doing with the community here in Nairobi, and was like, yes, I think I love the kind of work that you are doing with those people in the community, because most of my work was really addressing the issue of women, and which also is part of her work. So then from there we started collaborating.
Yes. So I remember that Washington was telling me that he had mostly worked sort of within a church setting, because in Kenya, churches are good venues to do theater. But for his next forum theater play, My Dress Is My Choice, which was about sort of the rules that society throws at women concerning what they're supposed to wear, that he sort of wanted to take that out of a church setting, because doing it in a church setting would sort of mean, yeah, maybe the discussion would not be as free as you would like it to be, but he really didn't know how to find a venue or anything. And I'm sitting there and thinking, my golly, there must be funds for this in the world. This ticks all the boxes. It's community-based, it's educational, it's really sort of grassroots work. It's in the global South, it features women's rights. So I said, well, you know what? I don't know anything about theater in Kenya, but what I do know something about is writing funding applications. So maybe this is the way I can help make this happen. Yeah. And so that's sort of what it started as. And we did actually, there's a foundation called USA for Africa, and they gave us some money for the project. And so then this all, of course, took a lot longer than it sounds like now. So I traveled to Kenya because I really wanted to be in that rehearsal room. And I thought to myself, right, so I'm going to go in there and I am going to keep quiet, because the last thing that we need in a Nairobian rehearsal room is the solitary European white person thinking they know how to do things. Oh, hi there, we've got a visitor. Right, and then I really didn't know what a rehearsal room or that rehearsal room was like. It's the most collaborative experience I ever witnessed. I mean, I come from a background, East 15 sort of prides themselves on devising and collaborative work, but yeah, I would definitely say that these 5 actors in Washington, and finally me as well, we jointly created the play. Washington, how is it that like everybody is so used to sort of creating the adaptation together?
I think before maybe I answered that, Eva, I also remember when we discussed about how can we actually make this work for the first time, and then we share it with Anne Gatania, and then she accepted us again for the second time, just to come and also have enough time to plan for this project, which again, also, I believe it helped us so much because now we were able to meet again for the second time to ponder about the topic and also to try and engage some of our colleagues like Maya Anderson, who also actually helped us in the project. She actually gave a voice so that at least we will be able to get some funding for the project. And yeah. So maybe now you can ask your question. I was just trying to put to add some more of what was it.
Yeah.
So
that is quite interesting. A meeting in New York City brought together someone from Switzerland and Kenya and changed something. Something really happened. We know works of big foundations, or great ones like the Sundance Foundation that did great work in East Africa and then also in North Africa, Arab world. But here is a small United Nation, a gathering of artists, young artists, often before they become well-known, who get together in New York, is something that actually makes a difference globally. And we do not have enough here in New York City. I feel it's often a bit isolated, provincial, just looking in the inside snowball of the American theater. And I think, so something happened, but also the interest between you guys that was real, they were listening, took place. I would like to know, before we go to the production, how is the situation at the moment in Kenya, in Nairobi? How are you surviving? What are you doing? You're having a family. I saw a kid. How is it for theater artists?
Well, okay, thank you for that question. Yeah, here still we are in a lockdown sort of, like, and so many theater artists are really finding it hard to survive right now because there is no movement. There is a lot of restriction of movement. Again, about the vaccine, the COVID vaccine, it has not reached to us as an artist. So it's really hard. Like now for me, what I am doing right now so much is doing some sort of script writing so much because there's nothing much that I can do as far as theater is concerned right now. I just have to wait to stay indoors as I do some sort of script writing, just waiting for the government to open the economy and to open the country again.
Script writing for television?
Yeah. So I'm trying to come up with some ideas and also some facts about now the situation that we are in, so that when the country is open, now I'll be able now to revisit the kind of the situation that we were in when we were fighting this pandemic.
Is anybody in the theater community in Nairobi, is anybody vaccinated? Vaccinations out? Are there any vaccinations? Do you know anyone who has been vaccinated in the theater community?
No, I think the process of rolling out the vaccine here is kind of slow. And those who have taken the jab so far are the older people, the people who are working in the health ministry, and also the teachers. Also the teachers have gotten some jab, but it has not reached to any artist at all. So we are still waiting patiently, and hopefully we believe that it will reach to us as an artist.
Do you get any help, any support as an artist?
No, we don't have that kind of arrangement with the government. So it's just as we said that we just have to survive. If maybe you have a friend who maybe can help you on one or two, at least you appreciate. But I have heard some of my fellow artists who have even finding it harder in a way that, you see, where we live, you need to survive, you need to pay your bills, you need to eat, but it's now becoming very hard. Some of them are even being injected from their homes because now they cannot pay rent, and there's nothing much that they can do about it. So it's really getting hard, and we are not getting help from our own government. So it's really depressing. Some of them are even depressed with the situation, because we don't know when will this end and how will we go back to our normal lives. We have families who also depends on us, but how are we going to take care of them if we are still in a lockdown and we are trying to fight for survival? Yeah.
Lockdown means at 7 o'clock you cannot go out, or all day you cannot go out?
Okay, some specific counties has been locked down where you cannot move from one place to another. You just rotate within the same area. Yeah, and then there's a time limit, the curfew time. Like now, the curfew time has been put to 8 p.m. So after 8 p.m. you are not supposed to be found outside. You are supposed to be inside. So the limitation of movements also has caused these problems, because there are some artists, there are freelance artists who travel from one county to another to do theater. So they cannot do that because now the movement is restricted within within the same area where he or she lives.
So tell us a bit, Eva also talked about it, about the community you work with and for. Tell us a bit about your community and what do you do? What are the theater plays? How does it look like, your work, if there's no lockdown? How do you work in?
Okay, I work, as I said, I'm a forum theater facilitator, where I always address some important issues that really affect the community. And the way the forum theater works, it's really good because we are trying to find the solutions of our own problems. And the solutions that the same communities are giving are the same ones that we implement. Like for a scenario of, let's say, women harassment. So we are trying to ponder what are the ways that can cause maybe men to do some unforgivable things to women. And then when we find out from the same people who are doing the same things, then we are trying to implement some guidelines that really will help us to live in harmony within ourselves. Another thing that I do with the community, I mentor young people in art, in theater art, where I write scripts, and the script that really they can relate with, they can associate with very well. Then I train them, I go with them the same process of acting techniques, and I make them grow. I make them realize the talent that they have in them. And mostly, the kids, most of the kids that I mentor, they come from the slums areas. So they feel like, okay, I never knew that I can have this talent, but because of what I give to them, make them feel part of the society and that they can do something great instead of engaging to some illegal activities like maybe drug abuse. So my theater keep them busy and also at the same time make them grow, make them grow in their talent.
So your theater is a setting in the tradition of Augusto Boal and theater of the oppressed?
Yeah, yeah. Excuse me, please.
Yeah, so it's in the tradition of Augusto Boal, the great theater artist from Brazil, and forum theater. So you do collective performances in the church, like people are in a circle and you play in front, or is it a stage, or is it outside? How does it look like?
Some I do in the church setup. Yeah, some I do in the church setup. Some I do outside, like in a community halls. That's community halls where I invite them to come and join. They sit on a circle, just 50 to 100, and then we try to go through a certain topic that really affects the community. So it is both ways. In the church setting and also in the community setting. So maybe in church setting, we can try to do some bit of stage art. But again, when I go to the community, I have to do. They have to sit in a circle, and we try the art when they are in the circle.
Eva, how do you experience the work when you went there, and why is it important to you to collaborate with Washington?
So, that's a whole bunch of questions in one. Okay, maybe first, what I experienced. So, as I said before briefly, this is it was an amazingly collaborative rehearsal space. I think this has to do with the fact that a lot of Kenyan actors do something called set books. So they sort of tour around a company of about 12 people with adaptations of classical literature that they create themselves, and they tour around schools because maybe school kids would rather see a play of some classical novel than read it. So it's a bit like sort of, I don't know, I guess the way people in Europe would say, okay, I didn't read the book, but I saw the movie. So I think they've got this really strong background in collaborative creation and sort of building on each other's work. So that was something that I really appreciated in the rehearsal room. I was not actually there for I was there for the dress rehearsal, but I was not there for the actual performances of my dresses by choice. But I saw footage from it, and obviously Washi told me about it. And what I thought was really amazing there was that what the people found out was how important the role of the bystander was. So the setup was two girls dressing up fancy to go to a party. Wasn't even sure if they were dressing up to like impress men, or they just dressed up because they like dressing up. And then there was three guys, so sort of wannabe cool guy, then a religious guy, and then a guy who just wants to hang out with the lads. So the religious guy objects because religion, or tradition, or a mixture of everything. And the cool guy just wants these women to hit on him, which they don't do. And the undecided realized in the course of these form theater performances was that the pivotal person was the bystander. It really depended on, in this case, him, whether the situation escalated and like harassment took place or even violence took place, or whether nothing at all happened. And this is an outcome I personally did not foresee, and that I thought was really, really powerful, because I think about 95 to 98% of the time, all of us are in exactly that position. We're the bystander who's not actually really involved, and we think it's to hold a whole lot of power. And I really set up kind of proved that no, most of the power actually is with exactly that person, because the people who have really strong opinions are unlikely to change them, but everybody else might influence whether they act on their not so helpful impulses.
And was it on the street? Was it outside a site-specific work, or was it in the community setting, in the church? Where did it happen?
So it happened in a community hall, because this is one of the plays that Washington said, I really don't want to do this in a church setting, because I might actually also want to talk about how religion and tradition is sometimes not so helpful in this conversation. So this was in Madare, South or North Hall. So it's
social hall. Social hall.
Thank you, Washington. Yeah. And that's it's a community center in Madare. Madare is a not very affluent, to put it mildly, area in Nairobi, and the community hall holds, I think, about 200 people. Do you reckon?
Yeah. But we did like 4 to 5 shows, which we addressed more than 200 people. Yeah.
And this was before Corona, obviously.
It was in 2016.
Yeah.
So that project we did.
Washington, were you able to do work now? Are you able to do work in the time last year? Did you do anything that?
Yes. Last year from the beginning, before Corona, because our first Corona patient was reported as around end of March. So I was able to work from January to that end of March. That was last year. I was directing high school students, preparing them for drama festivals, where I did one of the plays that talks about the blunt, the transgender play, and it was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. You wrote the play with the students together about a transgender.
Yeah. What I do,
was probably.
Yes, what I did is getting their views, because some of them were being affected, and unknowingly, you know, this student joined high school thinking that he is a boy, only to find out that she's a girl. She's attending a month periods. Yeah, so they were getting hard time to cooperate with other students, because she was in a boarding school, a boys' boarding school, but now she's finding herself that she's a girl. So it's really strategy. And then when I get the story, then I start writing. I wanted this information to actually be known to everybody, so that the teachers should be aware of what other students are going through in their lives. And it was really amazing. Yeah.
I'd like to just quickly jump in there.
I think your sound, I have problems hearing your sound. I don't know, Washington, do you hear Eva clearly?
No.
Yeah, maybe could you sign out and sign in again? Could you try that?
I know the problem.
Maybe Thea, or if you can write a message to Eva to sign out and in again, or yeah, turn off the camera. Washington, did you tour that play also in like the classical plays, the Drench play? You were able to perform in different high schools and different.
Yeah, I have been doing that, but you see, doing it in different high school, but again different plays. It's not the one, because at the end of the day, they will come for a competition. So if I write a play, let's say the blunt play for a particular school, I have to write again another play, totally different with the other ones, so that when they come for a competition, they have totally different plays and different characters, because they are competing, and there are also other directors who are doing the same with other schools. Yes.
So there has to be it has to be an original play, and this is a way. How interesting, and it's also heartbreaking. You are part of the theater community, of our global theater community. Your work is important. Your work about women's roles, about transgender roles, about racism and homophobia, and yet you don't have enough to eat. There's no support, there's no vaccination out there. If you would live by chance in England, France, Germany, US, you could work in big theaters, you would be an assistant director, then do your own plays, but you happen to be there, and it's the circumstances are so complicated, and I hope that there is a way, like Eva showed us, that the world community, theater community, can reach out and help, and also see that your suffering and your work is our suffering, but it's also our work, and what we also can learn, because what you do seems to be working, to be in community centers, to create plays. You write the plays in an ensemble where you perform them, also in some kind of a competition, which gives us a sportive connection. After March, have you then been mostly in your home, or were you able to do new?
No, after March last year, I've not been able to work. because of the situation. Yeah, so it has been very tough. All the government banned all the social gathering, and including theater. And so it has been very tough for us as theater artists here, because now we don't have work.
You don't have work. What does the collaboration with Eva mean to you, or to have to New York? What is it? What does it mean to you? Has it changed your way to do theater?
Yes. Eva, she has been very supportive in my life since I met her way back in 2014, and now we have collaborated. Now we have collaborated for the 2 projects. The last one, I was in Switzerland. That was way back in 2019, where we did that documentary theater play together with her. We created it, we catered it, and then we staged it, which it was really amazing. And also the experience that I got from her is really amazing. Yeah.
Eva, maybe tell us a bit about the documentary play you worked on together.
Okay, I'll do this with my camera off, so hopefully you will hear me better.
Yeah.
Right. So after My Dress Is My Choice, I then thought, well, you know, an international collaboration only really is an international collaboration if both artists travel both places. And I mean, this is where the world is so crazy. I mean, if I want to go to Kenya, I buy an airline ticket and pay $60 for a visa that I will definitely get. And bang, I'm in Kenya. Whereas if Washington wants to travel to the Schengen area, this is not even just Switzerland. I mean, the amounts of times he traveled to the embassy, the amount of personal information he had to reveal, the amount of times he was just snubbed, not let in by the person at the door, I mean, at the door of the embassy. Basically until 3 days before Washi flew over to Switzerland, we didn't know whether this would happen because the Swiss immigration authority was not allowing him to come in, to travel. And I mean, I think I spent about a month basically on the phone to people. And finally I thought, okay, the only thing that we can still do is I called basically the State Department that had given us money for the project and said, listen, so you've given us money to do this play, Favorite Fear. And at the same time, there's somebody else who works for the same cantonal government that is stopping the artist from coming in. Is there anything you can do? And then the cultural director of the canton, so of the state, as it were, I guess, sent out a very powerful email. And 2 hours later, Washington had green light to come here. So yeah, anyway, that then also became part of our play because the play Favorite Fear was about the question why we associate things that we do not know with negative emotions. So why do very many people perceive the unknown as potentially threatening? I mean, they could also perceive it as potentially an opportunity. So on the one hand, this had the story of a biracial couple that were trying to figure out how to live together and where to live together. Then we also had a lot of documentary footing from people blowing up a balloon until it burst, and then talking about things that made them afraid, people in Kenya and people here. And we worked with a video artist, Monika Rechsteiner, who sort of incorporated these videos into our set. And then we also had an amount of experimental setups where we invited the audience to feel what the characters were feeling. So for example, when we were talking about fear of the unknown, we teamed up audience members who didn't know each other, had the one person be blindfolded and the other person guide them through the space only by sound, and then switch and then sort of discuss what did this do to us and why.
Did your time in Nairobi change how you look at theater, how you work theater, Eva?
Yes, I think what it enforced something that I think I already knew, and that is that for me personally, if a play is not trying to change either the discussion around a certain topic or the people who are collaborating in it, then perhaps I should not be part of this play. I'm not saying it should not exist. I mean, the beauty of theater is there's just so many different things. But whilst I do not believe that theater should be didactic, I think personally I have quite old-fashioned views in that I think it should have an educational aspect in that it invites us to envision worlds that are different from the one that we immediately live in. And I think that's something that Washington's work does very, very much, and that sort of woke up something or enforced something within me.
So you said you worked for over a month. It was maddeningly complicated to get him to Switzerland, which we all think Europe should be easier. Why is it so important to you? And why do you think everybody should collaborate? What is the significance of that engagement, that extraordinary engagement you showed?
Well, very fundamentally, we had agreed to do this play together. We'd invested a lot of time and energy and imagination and whatnot. So of course, I'm going to do everything that I possibly can to make it happen. And on the other hand, it just really, really enraged me. I think a lot of what I was actually doing out of anger, thinking, how dare you? I mean, I don't know, to whatever bureaucrats were blocking this process, how dare you have this assumption that a Black unmarried man's only objective is to pretend to be a theater artist in order to get himself into the Schengen area. And I mean, for example, so our play took place right before Easter. So Washington filed for a visa that would allow him to stay a couple days after the closing night. And I thought, I've seen a whole lot of Kenyan culture, so I think this would be a nice opportunity for Washington then, after all the work, to also maybe see something of Switzerland. No, the duration of his visa was shortened. He had to leave the morning after the last show. And that's just shameful. That's just wrong. And I don't think I can in one big go change the way the Swiss Office of Migration works, but I can at least give them a very, very hard time trying to do what they think is their job.
Yeah. I mean, also in the US, it's becoming increasingly complicated, especially under the Trump regime, of course. International exchange visas, paying international artists. For us also at the Segal Center, it's maddeningly complex within the structure of our system, but also the American one. Actually, one feels it's intentionally, often American artists, if they apply for funding, you list one international collaborator, you will not get the funding because they say this is just for US artists. Meanwhile, in music, in world music, people listen to musicians from around the world, are influenced, they want to play together. Nobody would question that and say, you know, you can't play if you play with a musician from Kenya. And I think the isolation, the nationalism of nations at the moment is something that perhaps contributed to complex problems we do experience in society. And I think theater artists, and that's why I want to applaud you, also highlight that case that both of you, instead of just writing a play in Switzerland with a Swiss playwright and Swiss actors, you said, no, I'm going to get Washington over, we create something. It's kind of a documentary theater, so real theater of the real, as Carol Martin would say. You did something and you created something. And I think it's an important model also coming out of an encounter, of an engagement, of kind of a seminar, school, workshop setting. And so little actually often has consequences. So something is working. Do you feel, both of you, for your time now in Switzerland and Kenya during this lockdown, this year of global closure in a way and confinement, do you feel something has changed in your thinking about theater and performance? When you go back, let's say in a year from now, or maybe two, who knows, you know, you go back, do you feel the moment has changed your thinking, your work, your vision for theater? Washington, maybe you start.
Oh yeah, okay, thank you very much for that question. Yes, yeah, I will say yes, because like I know now this corona has brought a lot of fear in people. Even if it will go maybe in 1 year or 2 years, we will not get more audience in a theater platform the way it were before the corona. So I think that is my fear. Yeah, that is what I fear, and that is what I know will change. The amount of people coming to see our work, I think it will reduce. Yeah.
I think, am I fine now? No.
Maybe take this, Leah. Yeah, just the voice might be better.
I'm just going to be a photo again. Fine. I think yes, I share Washington's concern about audience capacity, but I think for me it was something else as well, and that is that I noticed how it felt like we were very dispensable as artists, and that felt very painful. I felt that except for a small loyal following, we were not really missed. Now that these might be my inner demons speaking, I don't know. But I then thought, okay, if we are in fact only the ornament of a societal discourse and we are not part of its very fabric, then obviously we, or I should say I, am doing something wrong. And henceforth, I need to work differently. I need to find different platforms. I need to find different forms of collaboration so that what I do is no longer just fun and entertainment and dispensable, but that somehow whatever I do henceforth can help, perhaps in my ideal world, mend this enormous gulf that has opened up within our society, where everybody's sort of radically in their corner and they're putting everybody else in the corner, and less than ever before are people speaking to other people who have different opinions. And I guess I have no idea yet how exactly I'm going to do it. I mean, I have a couple, but they're not really implemented yet. But I think it's reminded me that for me, theater must in some way be political, or I can't quite understand why it is.
Mm-hmm. So it has to be a clear activism and political activism behind it as a message.
Well, I mean, activism doesn't need to be throwing a slogan at people, but maybe just in the form that one works together, it needs to foster dialogue, or it needs to be, once again, I'm only speaking for myself, I'm not setting up rules for anyone else, mm-hmm. But I'm thinking that, yes, obviously, I didn't realize how much I was in an ivory tower, how much I was in a bubble, and I need to make more efforts to go outside that bubble. I thought I was doing that by doing a lot of community theater, but clearly not enough.
Mm. Washington, Eva talked about, that within society, fractions are becoming larger, bigger, and they don't seem to be bridges anymore. How was it for you, your place about HIV/AIDS, your place about transgender, the right to dress for a woman or a man, or a woman, yeah, most of them, of course, but most of them, that should be a personal choice and not, provoke such often radical reactions. How was it received in the community? Was it a message that was welcome? Did you encounter protests? What was the impact?
Yeah, at first I was having some of the challenges because people have different kind of views. But as I continue with the process, like for example, if I use the people living with HIV here, there is a lot of stigmatization mm-hmm. for those people who are HIV positive. So me giving that platform really helped some of them, because to my view, I reduced the kind of the stigmatization that was going around. And even though there was some of the audience that felt like, no, I don't feel that this kind of thing can be brought into a platform like this, because some feel that they are not free to talk about it. But at the end of the performance, they feel, okay, it's not something bad, it's something that you can live with, and it's something that it's just like any other disease. So yes, there have been some little challenges, but I think the achievement has been great. Yeah, because even the one for transgender, there was a lot of talk. People are like, no, this thing, I don't think if it is real, I don't think if it is in our school setup. But as the time goes by, they feel, okay, it's true, it is happening, and how can we deal with it? So that to me has been, I feel like there's something there's an impact that I have put in the society, that I've created in the society, that make me feel at peace. Yeah.
And also a great story. I am sure any filmmaker, maybe one day you make a film out of it, of an all-boys school in Kenya, and one boy says, no, actually I am a girl. What happens? How do people react? Parents, teachers, other students. I think is an incredibly important, significant subject that is very controversial also in the US. And what you do is, being part of a global dialogue, and it's, it's hard to listen to, even, to understand the complexities under which you produce work, or you cannot produce even the work you cannot normally even produce anyway, because there's no support. Washington, how did you learn about do you know about American artists, for example? Are you influenced by European artists, America, or is it come out of a Kenyan, African background? Who influences you?
I think when I started to do theater, there's one of my mentor here in Kenya is called Sir Ellis Otieno. He is the one who influenced me. He saw the kind of work that I was doing in church, and then he called me. At that time, he was doing some of the directing work at Alliance Francaise. He called me and he talked to me. He told me that, are you sure you are the one who wrote this kind of a play, and you are the one who directed it? And I was like, yeah, that's one of my plays. And then he told me that there's something great in you, and I could like to mentor you, to welcome you in this kind of in this industry. And then I accepted, and then he started moving with me step by step. Now that's where I found myself. Even the lab, the director's lab, I learned through him. He was the one who was supposed to come. He was supposed to apply, but at that time he was really very busy. And then he called me and he told me that there's an application here for the director's lab. Kindly, can you try your luck? Maybe they can accept you. And then he forwarded me the same email. And then I applied for the director's lab. And luckily enough, I got the chance to meet other fellow directors, also who again inspired me more. And now here I am.
That's amazing. And but on the other hand, it means, that so much theater happens in Europe, happens in the US, and it doesn't have an influence. It doesn't get noticed. You are, working with local artists, and something like Eva's work and the Directors Lab opens up something and creates a first crack, an opening. And I think this is so important and significant. What also Africa experiences, what it goes through. As you say, the AIDS crisis is still very much present. 400,000 people, if I have my numbers right, die each year of malaria in Africa. It's the more men have died of corona this year in the United States, or close to the numbers. There is not even enough money for vaccinations against measles. And so it is all a complicated situation. I think theater has to help also as a symbolic space, an imaginary space, and a real space, as we always say, to represent interest that Eva says, this is important what Washington does. I want to support him. And Washington says, this is interesting what Eva does, or what Anne Catani does in New York. I would like to learn more and take part in that. I think it is missing. Systems are too close, perhaps on all the sides. And I think Corona is a time that reminds us that we need to learn from each other, listen to each other, and also collaborate. And sorry to hear how complicated it is to get a visa to work as an artist in Switzerland. I did not know. But you got it done, so congratulations for that. Eva, how is the situation in Switzerland at the moment in Corona time?
As of last Monday, things have started opening up again. So we're now free to assemble up to 50 people outdoors, up to 50 people indoors, keeping distance, masks, etc., or up to 100 people outdoors. Some people fear that this is really premature, that our numbers are not anywhere near what they should be. I don't know, maybe our federal council is optimistic. Maybe we are too influenced by the economy. Maybe granting people more freedom will make them more compliant to rules. I do not know. I feel happy for everybody who can now start working again. I feel happy that I can be in a rehearsal room again. I also feel worried because if we've just bought ourselves 1 month of potential normality at the cost of many hundreds of lives, that would be a very bad thing. It's fragile. It's very funny at the same time, Germany is just enforcing more rules and more rules and more rules. So it seems like working between Switzerland and Germany, you sort of think these people are in two separate worlds. The Swiss think everything is going to be fine really soon, and the German seem to think that we're heading for catastrophe. So maybe I should set up my base in the middle of Lake Constance.
What is the mood in Swiss theater community, or perhaps also the German one? What are the people thinking about? Is there something where you feel something noteworthy, something to report to us? What are people thinking about? What are they doing? What's interesting?
I think what is interesting on a psychological level is that even though we are one of the industries most affected by the lockdown, etc., I think everybody is very much in solidarity. I don't think I've heard from a single theater artist that they think this is all nonsense, or that this should stop, or the whole sort of movement of people who deny the existence of COVID, or that think that the measures against COVID are overdone. I don't think I've met a single person from the theater community that thinks that way. So that's, I think, one thing. And the other thing is, I think that more and more people are exploring really small formats, also exploring ways in which audience is not in the sort of traditional configuration of let's have a big room full of people. But I think I will see a lot of these thoughts that at the moment I'm only just hearing, hopefully in the next couple of months, when what people have been brooding over for a year comes to fruition.
So the big theaters are all closed in Switzerland, the opera houses, the state theaters.
Well, they reopened as of last Monday, so they're doing large scale work, but for a very, very limited audience.
Like 100 people where there normally would be 1,000, and
50 people in, say, the Opera House of Zurich that holds about 1,000, 50 people in the Schauspielhaus. There's been a lot of streaming. There have been a lot of digital formats that have been happening. But what I think is what gives me hope is to think that, well, actually there've been a whole bunch of artists that have carried on rehearsing throughout this, but at the same time it also points out that yes, these are all the people who are in state-funded theaters. Everybody who's doing more fringe work has probably not been able to rehearse. So there's a double standard, I guess you could say.
Yeah, and it's perhaps like in business, companies that are already big, they will get bigger, they take over the spaces, and the smaller ones will disappear, will even have a smaller footprint if they survive at all. And so it's a big reason for concern. Washington, are you in contact with theater artists in West Africa, East Africa, South? What do you hear? What is the mood? Or is it a Kenyan experience? It's more isolated.
I think Kenyan experience is more isolated, yeah, because, but generally it's not easy here in Africa, especially for theater artists. Yeah, so we are all struggling. Yeah, we are all struggling. The theater places are still closed, even in our neighboring countries, that is Uganda, Tanzania, they are closed. There is no social gathering, so making theater at this time right now really is very hard in Africa, in most of the African countries.
Yeah, it already is hard in normal circumstances, and I know most probably there is not a national drama school, right? Or is there a school, a university where people are trained in Nairobi? How does it work? You said it was a mentorship, you know, someone took you in and put it, but are there programs, theater programs?
Not really. The universities that are offering training, they are doing film production training. Yes, yeah, but not theater. Yeah, from
theater at all. Yeah, it just also shows how significant such initiatives like the Directors Lab is, or any international collaboration, and they are great artists in all around the world, but also of course in Africa, and we have often more time, more resources, more experiences, and that's why artists can explore, make mistakes, make more mistakes, and then go on. But it is not as easy, and I think we have to do a better job. I don't know, foundations, whatever, who could help out African theater artists to support them in a time where it is about survival. We had talks also with theater artists in Chile, in Brazil, and they said they are hungry. They cannot find enough food. They cannot. It's about survival. It's not about making art anymore. And wish there would be a way that the international community also reaches out, that foundations, in case anybody listens, are out there supporting the work of Washington, which I think is groundbreaking what he does, and in his structure, how it is organized, so contemporary. But it is co-written, co-produced, ensemble work on streets, in forum halls, and then produced and showed in different countries, even different continents. The collaborations continue. So I think it's in a model on a very small scale, and there are not famous names involved, but I think these are real exchanges that, in a small way, but then contributing to a big way of change, is something that is a real a model to look up to, and I would encourage everybody, also in the US and in Europe, find partners, collaborate, visit, travel together. Even so, at the moment it's not possible, but because we miss it, because we might understand how much more important it is. Maybe both of you, what projects are you working on, or what are you thinking about, what you would like to do when this time of Corona is over, and the time after Corona, as we say, TAC, when it's going to start? What are you?
Maybe I will allow Eva to go first.
Yes.
And you can fill in the gaps, right? Yeah. So Washington and I. So initially we had planned to take Favorite Fear to Kenya and to do it in Kenya, and then COVID happened. So this clearly is not happening. So either thinking of doing that because it's so audience interactive, or then sort of a Kenyan version of it, which could which very much sort of focuses on the character that we had in Favorite Fear. Her name is Barbara, the white woman who's with Okoko, the Kenyan Luo man, and sort of what happens when she travels to Kenya. And I think that would be sort of, after myself having been in Kenya twice, I think this would be really interesting, because I think there's a lot of, I don't know, it's crazy how not only institutionalized racism is, but how pervasive it is in our thinking. And talking from a personal point of view here, how often one catches oneself sort of falling into traps that one didn't even really know existed, or sort of joining into narratives that one then sort of realizes, hang in there, why am I repeating this nonsense that I have absolutely no empirical proof for? I think it sort of starts at those ideas of, I don't know. So, okay, hang in there, let me you know what, I tried to say two things and I lost my train of thought. Why don't I now pass it over to Washington?
Yeah, no, you can come back.
Sorry.
It's okay, it all makes sense.
Yeah, that's what we are just hoping that when things return back to normal, it's also good for Kenyans also to see the Swiss version of the project, because the Swiss people saw the Kenyan version in the project. That's the favorite fear. So we are still brainstorming it. How are we going to bring it here in Kenya also after the COVID, and how will they embrace the idea and the performance? Yeah, that is what we are really working on.
And what are your individual projects? Do you have also independent projects you work on now, new projects?
Not much. I'm working on just doing some scripts right now that will again be able to help my students in terms of mentorship. Yeah, that's what I'm working on so far.
Mm-hmm. Eva, you?
There are two things that sort of currently are at the forefront. The one is something that we've worked on before Corona, so this would be with SinnSpiel, which, by the way, also features another former Directors Lab member, Robert Salzer. So we've created this interactive dinner. So this has nothing to do with any actors being present, they're just participants. And they get a textbook, and they sort of have dinner together while following this textbook, and after they get to know each other, start engaging in more political questions and questions that concern how we build society together. And the idea there is to get people talking outside their bubble. So that's something that hopefully will resume pretty quickly now that small gatherings are possible again. And then there's a project that I'm working with a colleague, a two-person play that we want to, which has a lot to do with death and with grieving, and that we don't want to perform in traditional theater spaces. We are talking to churches. We want to do it in, so here we have this special kind of chapel next to a church where the dead are usually put before they're buried. So in such places, in morgues, at cemeteries, places where people go to grieve, and use this play as an invitation to engage with the topic, either for people who are actually grieving and need fictitious characters to perhaps give words and the voice to what they're feeling, or then for people who are not currently in this situation. Because one thing that we've noticed a lot in this last year is death is the big taboo, and it's probably not very helpful that it's the big taboo. So if we can get more people talking about the fact that we are finite and fragile, it would probably be a good idea.
Yeah, that is true. As someone said, all important and great stories are about death or love. And
yes,
And you know, this is something we need to hear and reflect. Thank you both really for joining. I think it's also a big reminder for the big theater culture, the big theater communities. You know, most probably Washington does not know about Susan Laurie Parks or Segal tourists, about so many other, Brendan Jacob James. There's so little communication between the worlds. It's so important. We have so much to learn from each other, and I think this is a project, you know, that is a great model on a very small scale, but it also shows something is really possible. And we hope that after this time, you know, a project like this will flourish independently, small, community-oriented project. And I do also believe this is a future. Everybody talks about how will theater look like when we go back or not. I think perhaps it will be many, many projects like the one we talked about today. Eva, did you wanted to say something or?
Yes, and that was just one annotation to what you said. So as you stated very correctly, a whole lot of big European names or American names might not be known in Kenya, but maybe we should also be asking the opposite question. How much do we know about East African playwrights? How much do we know about East African tradition? This was very funny because Washington started asking me, you know, our big authors, so and so, and I then, to my shame, had to say that I didn't know a single one of them. That has slightly changed in the meantime, but I would just also like to encourage people from Europe, from the States, also take that step to cross those various oceans between us. There's a lot worth reading and discovering.
And we all have to listen to each other, learn from each other. I think the Sundance project was so great. The East Africa project, we were part of it and presented work in New York. It has been one of the most significant programs we ever did. And I think this is a very good reminder, and you are absolutely right about this. Thank you again for joining. This concludes this week's Segal Talks. Next week, we will have 2 days of a conference. I think what we also helped to put together, but they run a student-run conference at the Graduate Center CUNY, and they will focus on negotiating the quotidien, performing the everyday, that kind of idea of the theater of the real, the experts of the everyday, as Remedy Protocol says. Stefan Kegni will join the conversation, as well as Katja Afara from NYU Abu Dhabi, and many, many other student papers will be read. I think it's important and interesting to look at. I think it's at the forefront of contemporary thinking about theater and performance. And this is a research by the next generation of theater scholars and what they feel and think is of significance. And I think it is an important topic. And then on Friday, we have Joe Melillo with us, one of the most experienced curators and presenters of work. We are close to the avant-garde, the traditional avant-garde, the experimental avant-garde globally at the Brooklyn Academy of Music. And we want to hear what his thoughts are. He just let go of that work. He was over 25 years steering that big ocean steamer, and now the time of Corona has his expertise. He's still continuing to work. Of course, it will be of interest to us. But thank you both again, Eva and Washington. I hope I was able to give a good representation, you know, of your work. It is really important, and keep on doing it. And everybody who listens, I think things like this is actually what a theater also of the future of the 21st century will look like. Individual artists creating connections in workshops in a place that's another country, and then doing something, influencing each other, and whatever, and it will grow out of there. So thank you, and have a great weekend. And
thank you very much.
And I hope also in Europe it will get warmer slowly. I hear it's still very cold. We are experiencing the first days of spring. In New York, it was still 4 or 5 degrees. It was cold yesterday, but as someone said, you can cut the flowers, but spring is coming. So good luck, and thank you all again. And thanks to HowlRound for hosting us again, for the great Thea to be with us. And of course to our listeners for taking the time to listen in the time where now so much is out when we started in March last year. we were one of the first to do that, but it means a lot to us, and also really means a lot to Eva and Washington to know that people are listening, that they're interested and supportive. And if anyone is listening who supports us project, call us up, call Eva Washington, and let's put some resources to such exchanges. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Take care.